Dr. K.S. Ramakrishnan is working as an Assistant Professor, School of Education, Tamil Nadu Open University, Chennai 15. He has been teaching science education, environmental science, educational technology and research methodology in various colleges of education and Tamil Nadu Open University for the past 9 years. He has guided so many M.Ed, M.Phil and PhD students. His current research areas are environmental education, educational technology and media and communication. He has conducted various workshops on ICT usage in education, Wiki Educator, e-content development and education research methodology. He had attended many online workshops on Moodle, learning analytics. He has published 6 books and many articles in national and international journals of repute. He regularly gives plenary and keynote speeches on environment and ICT related issues at various national and international conferences. He has delivered 28 episodes of the program Pudiyodor Ulagam at All India Radio, Chennai, related to various new developments in science and technology.
Welcome to UGC CEC program. In this episode, we will discuss about the environmental impact of oil and gas industry. Actually, for most of the purpose of every day-to-day transactions, we are using natural gas or fuel, and therefore, the exploration process, the huge industry that is causing a lot of environmental impact on the environment, and today's topic is that alone. And the major contents that we will discuss: the environmental impact of oil and gases, the various steps in oil production, the impact of oil and gas on environment, steps to mitigate the effect of oil and gas on environment, and the global warming and wetland loss. And so, let us start the topics one by one and see the environmental impact of oil and gas sector depends on so many factors. First of all, the stage of process and the project size and complexity, the nature and sensitivity of surrounding environment, the effectiveness of planning and the pollution prevention, mitigation and control technique. And therefore, the problem that depends upon these 5 factors. See, first of all, the stages of process. See the oil production. So, what are the stages of process and the project size and complexity? Certain processes are easy and certain processes are extremely complex, and therefore, it depends upon that also. And the surrounding environment, it may be an offshore, it may be a lake or it may be any environment, and therefore, in what environment the oil is extracted. So, that surrounding also is having a major impact, and the effectiveness of planning, that is more important. And if we are using the outdated or old techniques, then naturally the pollution will be more. And the last, the pollution prevention, mitigation and control techniques. So, before starting the oil extraction, we have to plan for how to prevent the pollution and how to control. So, all these factors are causing the major impact on the environment. See, you look at the diagram, it is a tar farm in 1862. So, you look at the diagram how polluted it was and what a haphazard way the things are there. And on the other hand, you look at the diagram. So, it is a modern offshore, it is so neat, so clean and it is so compact, and therefore, there is a vast difference between the old technique and the new technique, and therefore, before planning we have to well analyze, well plan what are the techniques that we are going to utilize. See, before understanding the impact of oil and gas sector on the environment, we have to thoroughly understand what are the various processes in the oil production. See, first process, first we have to see where oil is available. See, look at the diagram, some permeable rocks, they allow oil and gas, and some rocks are impermeable, and therefore, in between an impermeable and permeable rock, the oil is seeping and it is depositing over there, and that is called oil trap. and therefore, always an oil trap is in between a permeable and impermeable rock. And so, first we have to explore where oil is available. And so, in this process it is impacting a lot of noise and vibration, dynamite, vibrations of trucks, air gun, marine vessels, and the disturbance to human wildlife or marine life and low impact or transient. So, in the exploration process also we are using a lot of dynamite for finding where it is available, and so a lot of vibration, the air gun, the marine vessels, all these are causing a lot of disturbance on the environment, marine life and the wildlife also. The second process, so this is the air gun or the dynamite, and therefore, when through the dynamite that we are striking it, then a lot of pollution that is caused. And the second process, the reservoir rocks. See, the permeable strata in an oil trap is known as the reservoir rock, and therefore, you look at the diagram, these are all the rocks and in between the oil that is trapped. And the reservoir rocks have a lot of interconnected holes called pores, and they absorb the oil and gas like a sponge, and therefore, it is a rock structure of the oil trapping. And third method, the seismic survey. Suppose we have identified the oil, and the next step, how much amount of oil is available and how to extract, and therefore, that is done by the seismic survey, and therefore, a lot of holes they are drilled and they are analyzing the area, and here the vibration shock waves they are fired into the ground, they bounce off the layers of rock and reveal any structural domes that might contain oil. And therefore, once oil is found, we have to find what amount of oil and what condition and how to extract, and that is done by the seismic survey, and in this step also the environment that is heavily affected. And the fourth step, that is drilling the well, and once an oil or gas prospect has been identified, a hole is drilled, and in this process it is not that a single hole that is enough for extracting the oil, because they have to survey, they have to take an economic point of view also, and therefore, you look at, see, for drilling 1 meter is costing around some $10,000, and therefore, a lot of holes are drilled into the ocean, and there are some dry holes also, and they become waste. So, in that way also a lot of pollution or a lot of damage is happening to the environment. And in drilling, the drilling fluid, water, oil, synthetic based, so these fluids are used for drilling, and mud is also produced during the drilling, and the drill cutting, the land farming, the burial and the bioremediation, injection. Therefore, the drill cutting that is causing some problem for the environment, and the site preparation, the roads, the camp waste generation, they are having a long lasting impact. And so, these are all the various processes involved in the drilling, and they all are causing or they are impacting the environment. And the fluids are of 3 types: water based, oil based and synthetic based. In all this, the synthetic based material or the fluid, they are so economical and they are impacting the environment to the least, and therefore, we can use the synthetic based muds for taking the oil. And the drilling waste, the drilling muds and the drill cuttings, and they are also this mud and the drill cutting, they also cause serious concern for the environment. And the production waste, the produced water, sand, the treatment work and the completion fluid, and they are the production waste. And the associated waste, see, the production side is over, and associatedly a lot of other processes are happening, and the associated waste, the tank bottoms, the contaminated soil, see the soil is totally contaminated, and the sludges also, and these are the associated waste, that is another byproduct of the oil extraction. And the methods for disposing the solid waste, the land spreading and land farming. So, simply that we are spreading that into the land, or sometimes they are used for land farming also. The evaporation and burial on site, the incineration and other thermal treatment. Incineration means that we are burning within the containers, and therefore, totally that they are destroyed. The bioremediation and composting, some biological material, they may be bioremediation or they may become the compost also, and discharge to the ocean, they may be straight away that they are discharged into the ocean, but the problem is that they are causing serious damage to the corals and the marine ecosystem, and therefore, the discharge to the ocean, people should be very cautious. Reuse and recycling, they may be reused and recycling also, and the underground injection, that means deep holes are injected into the earth, and through that this waste they are injected, even though for the time being that they can be disposed of, but in a long run one day or other definitely they will cause some serious concerns to the earth, and therefore, these are all the various methods for disposing the solid waste. And these are the drilling mechanism and the enhanced recovery. Although the oil and gas are less dense than water and naturally rise up a well to the surface, in reality only 40 to 50% of the total will do so, and therefore, that we have to recover in an enhanced way. Even though they have to come to surface, but generally in practice they do not. Only 40 to 50% of the oil is coming to the top, and therefore, we have to use other methods for enhancing to take the oil to the top. And to enhance recovery, a hole is drilled adjacent to the well and steam is pumped down. The hot water helps to push the oil out of the rock and up into the well. So, in this adjacently a hole is drilled, and that hole, through that hole the steam is pumped into that, and therefore, that steam that is pushing the oil, and that oil that is coming to the top, and therefore, this is another step in the process of oil extraction. And then comes, okay, the oil is extracted, and now it has to be transported to the place where it is refined, and therefore, generally the Trans-Alaskan pipeline, and through pipeline that they can be taken, and oil tankers also, massive oil tankers, they are also playing an important role in the distribution, and therefore, this process it is also causing a lot of impact or damage to the environment, and it is a refinery. So, the oil that we call as crude oil or petroleum, that is a raw material, and by using the raw material hundreds of chemicals are processed, diesel, petrol, tar, and phenolphthalein, naphtha, like that there are so many materials they are prepared from this, and therefore, that industry is called the refining industry. As far as India is concerned, in Junagadh and some other places the oil refineries are there. In Chennai also there is a refinery, and therefore, the oil refinery, that is a distillation plant, and therefore, when the petrol that is distilled at various temperature zones, various chemicals are evolving, and therefore, the car fuel, jet fuel, road tar, all these are some byproduct of the distillation plant. And the final, the tar, that is also one byproduct that we are using for making the roads also. See, now what are the regulatory premises? We have to prevent the waste, we have to conserve the resource, because the petroleum or coal, they are not going to sustain everlasting, because within some 100 years all the coal reserve will be complete, and within 50 years all the petroleum reserves will be finished off, and therefore, we have to conserve the resources and the protection of corollary rights also, because the oil refineries or wherever petroleum is extracted, we have to protect the rights of that people, animal and the ecosystem also, and the environment also we have to protect. And so, these are all the regulatory premises. Let us have a short break. Welcome back. Let us proceed. So, these are all some fluids produced, and nitrogen and other gases, hydrogen sulfide, helium also is produced, and therefore, all these gases are fluids that we have to manage properly. And the major environmental concern, the petroleum industry is impacting the environment in all these methods or ways: the atmospheric impact, the aquatic, terrestrial, ecosystem and the potential emergencies. So, they are impacting all the domains: atmosphere, water, land and the ecosystem and some other potential emergencies also. Now, let us see one by one. The atmosphere is affected by the flaring, venting and purging of gases, because a lot of gases are produced, they burn, they explode and they are distributed to the whole atmosphere, and therefore, in that way that they are impacting. And the combustion process, the diesel engines and the gas turbines, because we are using diesel, all the automobiles they are using diesel or petrol, and the coal that is used for the thermal power stations, and therefore, in most of the chemical industries also that we are using coal, and therefore, in all the combustion process that a lot of gases are emitted, and the fugitive gases from loading operation and losses from the process equipment, because when we are loading and unloading the material, then also a lot of gases are produced, and the airborne particulates from soil disturbance during the construction and vehicle traffic, and so the particulate matter, the dust or the waste material, and therefore, the particulate matter that is also suspended in the air, and that is generally creating the greenhouse effect also, and they are reducing the visibility, the light visibility also, and these are all the various major gases, the carbon dioxide, monoxide, methane and a lot of volatile organic carbons and nitrogen, and therefore, in all these ways the atmosphere that is impacted. And then comes the aquatic impact. See, the produced water, because the water is used in the process also, and that water is re-injected into the land, and therefore, that is affecting the marine or the aqua ecosystem, and the drilling fluid, cutting, well treatment of chemical. So, that is also impacting, and washing and drainage of water, sewerage, sanitary and domestic waste, the spills and leakage. Actually, out of all this, it is causing the major damage, the spills and leakage. See, for example, when the oil is transported through ships or train, a lot of spillovers are there, and that is spreading to the whole marine ecosystem, and therefore, that is totally affecting the oxygen content, and therefore, that is creating severe damage to the marine or aqua ecosystem and the potential impact on aquatic life. And so, the aquatic impact is also equal to that of the atmospheric or the land impact, and it is affecting the drinking water and irrigation also. And then comes the terrestrial impact, the physical disturbance as a result of construction, because when an oil well is constructed, physically that it is affecting the whole surrounding, some few hundreds of kilometers, and the contamination resulting from the spillage and the leakage, solid waste disposal, the potential impact on forest, vegetation, agriculture, human and animal life, and the indirect impact arising from opening access and social change, because it is affecting the society also. So, once a particular place is chosen for the oil exploration, then naturally that people have to be vacated, and therefore, it is causing enormous social problems also. And the production side, salinity, the chemicals, the oil content, the camp waste. Camp waste means suppose all the area which is covered by the oil extraction site, and that is producing, because the people are staying there, the vehicles, the truck and other things, and therefore, that is creating a lot of camp waste and flare, noise, engine exhaust. So, all these ways environment that is affected severely. And the transportation, the oil tankers, LNG tankers, and here the pipelines and all, and therefore, that is causing sometimes accident, and therefore, the pipeline explosion, that is very common. And the waste steam, actually a lot of steam that is used for the extraction of oil, and therefore, that steam at a high temperature, that is re-injected into the water bodies, and therefore, in all these ways steam is produced, and therefore, when we are that is sending the steam directly into water bodies, generally that will be a problem, and therefore, before directly mixing that with water bodies, we have to reprocess this also. And the potential emergencies, and here the oil spill from a tanker, and here the rig, the whole rig on fire, and therefore, it is very common in all the oil industries, the fire, accidental fire or incidental fire, that is very common, and therefore, that is also another potential problem associated with the oil industries. And then they are causing the global warming also. See the coal, the petroleum, and these are emitting around some 15 to 30% less carbon dioxide than coal per watt of energy produced. Generally, the oil and gas, even though it is emitting some 10 to 30% less carbon dioxide, then also they are causing serious damage to the atmosphere and the global warming, because the carbon dioxide that is emitting into the atmosphere, and therefore, what will happen, the energy which is coming into the earth from the sun, actually that is coming, and so when it is coming and when they are reaching the surface, they are losing some energy, and therefore, they come with a high frequency and they go with low frequency, and therefore, what will happen, the same carbon dioxide which is transparent for the high energy wave, it is opaque for the low energy wave, and therefore, all the carbon dioxide that is causing a lot of greenhouse effect, and so in that way also that is causing global warming, and therefore, the temperature of the earth or the globe, that is gradually increasing, and so directly or indirectly the oil and gas industry that is causing the global warming. But on the same hand, the air power, see it is renewable and it is rotating that the air, the speed of air that is rotating the turbine, and therefore, the wind power that is not at all creating any problem, any environmental problem, and therefore, in comparison with the wind energy, the oil and gas energy that is very much affecting the environment. And we have seen already the spillage, the well blowout, the explosions, the natural disasters such as flood, earthquake and lightning, and therefore, all these are causing fire, and sometimes the natural disaster, flood etc., earthquake etc., and they are causing serious damage for the oil and gas industry and the war and sabotage, because some countries they are rich in the oil resources and some countries are not, and therefore, generally the countries which are not having that much oil wealth, they try to absorb the countries which are having a very good oil wealth, and most of the problems which are happening in the Gulf, that is mainly for the oil wealth. And therefore, in the same oil which is considered as a wealth, and that is sometimes causing severe problems like war and sabotage also. And so, and beyond that, the wetland loss also, and the greatest environmental problem facing the coastal area, that is the loss of wetland, and the oil and gas industry has contributed to the loss. And therefore, the wetland, because mostly the oil and gas industry, they are happening near the marine ecosystem, and therefore, near the marine area a lot of wetland is existing, and therefore, the wetland is also lost due to the oil excavation. And therefore, we have to restore the damaged wetlands. We have to use the solid waste product from oil and gas exploration as a substrate for the restoring the wetland. And therefore, when the wetland is affected, the mud or the sand which is excavated from the oil exploration, they have to be utilized for filling the wetland, and therefore, in that way that we can restore or reclaim the wetland. And so, in this episode that we have seen different types of oil production and what are the environmental impact that they are causing, or the oil and industries are causing to the environment, and how can we mitigate. Now, the summary in this episode: the environmental impact of oil and gases, various steps in oil production, the impact of oil and gas on the environment, the steps to mitigate the effect of oil and gas on environment, the global warming and wetland loss. All these topics have been discussed in detail. Now, let us have some questions. The first question: write the steps involved in oil exploration. And the second: what are the impact of oil and gas on the environment? The third: how fossil fuels cause the global warming? The fourth: what are the emission gases during oil exploration? And the last question: discuss the potential emergencies of oil and gas sector. So, with this, let us conclude this episode. Thank you. Have a good time.